Dame is number one.
Notre Dame with a miracle win as the clock
going
runs
in.
out.
Notre Dame has scored.
Afternoon, game week. So we're excited here. Certainly our players are starting to get that sense. It's been, a long time since that last game, and certainly that carries with you in the off season. And now it's an opportunity this week to get back on the winning track. Our guys, as I've mentioned, have done all the things that I've asked them to do, and in the sense that they've prepared the right way. We've had some very good practices this week as well, and we'll go today at a normal time, and then tomorrow morning we'll go at 6:15 a.m. We'll practice for about an hour tomorrow. Our players then will be required to attend classes. We'll bring them back around 2:30. We'll weight train, we'll meet, and we will and then board buses and head over to the airport and then on to Ireland. So it's going to be a long day for our players. It's purposeful in the sense that we want to get them up early. We want to keep them moving through the entire day so they sleep on the flight over to Ireland. We'll get up Thursday, go to the hotel, breakfast, and then we'll get into a Thursday routine relative to practice. And then get them in bed early Thursday, and we believe Friday now we can be adjusted to the time difference, go through a normal walkthrough on Friday, and then play the game on Saturday. So tomorrow's a pretty important day for us relative to getting acclimated to the change. Again, from my standpoint, we've got a great support staff. They've been able to handle all the logistics of the trip. We met today. We had our 48-hour meeting. Obviously, it's accelerated because we're not 48 hours from game time. But we go over the specifics, and everything's really tight. I'm a lot more at ease in knowing that all the things have been covered relative to traveling over 100 players to Ireland. Exciting day yesterday. We named our captains, 4 captains that represent all the standards that I want here at Notre Dame for our players. Tyler Eifert, Zach Martin on offense, Capron Lewis-Moore on defense, as well as Manti Te'o. I think what struck me more than anything else is when they got up before their teammates, the things that they said about being a captain at Notre Dame. And I know in one particular instance, Cap Lewis, was brought to tears. So you'd love to see the passion and the love for Notre Dame and their teammates, and they are great representatives. I will also add that there were a number of other seniors that easily could have been in that position of being a captain, and I think that's what I'm most excited about, is that we've got great leadership, not only amongst our seniors, but our veteran football players, and it's set a great model for our younger players to follow. So this week, again, preparation for Navy. As you know, very difficult opponent to play, especially in your opener, but anytime. Ken Niumatalolo, great coach, does, obviously as well as anybody in the country, and taking his talent and getting them to execute flawlessly on both sides of the ball, and they've shown that they can do that week in and week out. Again, an offense that has an experienced quarterback. Gigi Green's an outstanding slot. He makes their offense have that ability to get on the perimeter, and very, very sound scheme defensively. So it's going to be a great opportunity for us. I'm excited to see our football team play. You've got a first-year starter at quarterback. You're going to see some young players on the perimeter, replacing Michael Floyd, as well as some veteran players. Defensively, we've got some young players playing in the secondary, so it's really going to be an exciting game as the head coach, watching these guys compete for the first time. So a bit winded, long intro, but I'll open it up to any questions.
We'll start with the questions in the room here first. We'll take any questions from the callers.
Coach, in terms of kickoff coverage and the new rules, and have you devoted less time in practice because the frequency of maybe returns will be less this year, or have you adjusted that at all?
We have adjusted it. I think what it's adjusted more than anything else is there's really only two types of kicks. One is kick it out of the end zone, and one is, try to create a ball that hangs so your coverage team can get down there. But now with the encroachment rule being 5 yards, it changes the pace of your kickoff team getting down there a little bit. So, yeah, I think there has been some adjustments across the board. I know talking to other coaches, I don't know that that's always equaled out to less time, but maybe more concentrated effort on one or two types of kicks.
Brian, right here. How long have you guys worked on contingency plans for maybe not having Sierra, which obviously you won't now, for the opener, and in what ways have you worked on that?
I don't know that I worked on contingency plans. We certainly went out every day, practiced. When I made my decision, to suspend Sierra and Justin Utupo, we then, began to, get more reps to other guys because he wasn't going to be playing. But there wasn't a long period of time that we had a contingency plan because I didn't know what I was going to do relative to the rules violations.
When did you learn there was a violation that you might have to address?
I don't want to get into specifics of time and place because I first probably wouldn't be accurate. What's the most important thing is that, anytime I suspend somebody from the football team, it's perceived as discipline, and I understand that. These are educational opportunities for me, and so when we suspend somebody, I look at it in terms of how are we going to get this young man to live up to the standards that I have for our program. And in this instance, relative to his suspension, we want it to be educational, and we want him to come back better citizens and better young men.
Can you just talk now? You've got Theo, you've got George, I guess, as options 1 and 2 there. How do they fit in, and I guess in what ways are they different, similar to Sierra in terms of how you're going to run things Saturday? Sure.
As you know, Theo certainly is a guy that has a lot of experience at the wide receiver position. So you have somebody that extremely effective of catching the football. So he really is a guy that was bred for this position in terms of, if you call it a hybrid or whatever you want to call it. Running the ball is his first love. It's something that he's accustomed to through high school and in his first year or so here. And we cross-trained him, so he fits terrifically right now. George is progress every day. He was strictly the tailback. He was, in the eye. He was a guy that was getting the ball 7.5 yards deep. Now he's moving into different venues as a receiver. So he's continued to evolve in that position. And Cam McDaniel's somebody that's very familiar with this position because he played in the spread offense and was somebody that was very comfortable in it. So I think two of them are very comfortable in the position they are right now, and one's evolving in George.
You talk about the discipline, Coach, and how it's a teaching moment. And I just wondered, is it also disappointing in any way, or do you look at it just as an opportunity to learn from a mistake, and then heading into a season, could you talk about just the pros and cons of, going into a game or a year and trying to use this as you have to overcome something. You don't have a full roster of
Sure.
players and just that whole dynamic.
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know that I think of it in terms of, okay, we have to overcome adversity as much as you understand that as a head coach with 18 to 22-year-olds that you hope that everybody makes good decisions all the time. I hope my son makes good decisions, my daughter, but I think we all get disappointed, but we also know that they're young and we want them to learn from the mistakes that they made. And in this instance, we're hoping that Sierra and Justin, and I'm very confident that they'll learn from the mistakes. But I don't think it filters into the team that, oh my goodness, somebody gets suspended, we've got to overcome adversity. I think they see it more as, if you don't live up to these standards, this is what's going to happen. Let's keep moving forward. At least that's the sense that I get.
Just going back to running backs, is Amir Carlisle available for Saturday?
He is not available.
And to the whole Dublin thing, this is new for the players. It's obviously new for you too. When in your mind did you really start mentally preparing for the different week ahead and Just how different has that been for you going into a season, 22 years now?
The first change will be tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. That will be literally the first change in terms of the preparation of our football team relative to going to Ireland to play the game. We've really kept a similar schedule in terms of our preparation, and really the adjustments will start to take place tomorrow morning.
Brian, up here.
Yeah.
With the captains being named, how much do you lean on them moving forward to, I guess, avoid or help prevent situations like Sierra and Justin down the road? Is that something that you rely on captains to do for you?
Not necessarily. I don't think that necessarily comes with the job description as much as I expect all of our players to be vigilant on peer accountability. It's one of our cornerstones to our A team, which is, you know what to do. Let's make sure that the others know what to do as well. So I don't think it just comes with the captains. I think what comes with our captains is great representatives of our program, and not just vocal representatives in terms of media. But when they say something in the locker room, they're going to be heard as well. They're also a great opportunity for me to have communication with our leaders. Of course, we have a unity council as well that helps and assists in that as well. But I think they just represent all the things that we want in our program, and we can put them and push them out front.
You said the suspension was your decision. Was that in concert with residents' life, or did they render their own decision and this is on top of that?
This is strictly an independent decision that I made relative to the decisions that those young men made, and they violated the rules that our players know, and rules that they know every single day about being in this program.
How has Everett responded just in terms of body language, going out, practice, meetings, being around you, to having been named the starter last week?
I'd say that he understands the role of being a leader on our quarterback position is one that, Pete, you know more than anything that that quarterback kind of sets the tone. If he comes out there and he's not full of energy and he's not excited, that has a tendency to kind of filter through the ranks. That's never been the case. If he showed that at all during his audition, if you will, for the starting job, he wouldn't get it. Because, we're not going to beg somebody to be the starting quarterback at Notre Dame. So he's always had that. Andrew has that. Tommy's always had it. Gunnar will have it. So all these guys understand those nuances as it relates to the position.
Thanks.
Brian, over here. Just following up on Everett, him being a first-time starter and your experience with first-time starters before, you mentioned you have a game plan that's appropriate for a first-time starter. How about the way you deal with them during a game, the way you talk to them before a game? Is there any difference with that?
Well, I think it all goes to spending more time with them, and I've spent more time with the quarterbacks than any time in the past 5 or 6 years. I've been in every single meeting. I felt like, in answering your question, that it was important that we had great communication, especially on the sideline. And so I've gone in a direction that I don't believe that that's going to be an issue on the sideline, that we'll be able to communicate effectively and move on to the next set of circumstances.
Is Chuck upstairs or downstairs?
Chuck's in the box.
Okay. And then following up on Amir, you mentioned he's not going to be available this Saturday. Does this look like something that might push long-term with him, or?
I don't think so. Knock on wood. We're really encouraged. I think next week you'll get a chance to maybe even ask him, because I'm very, very optimistic as we stand here right now that he may be close. We wanted to be very careful with him. The fact of the matter is he's a really good football player, and we don't want to play him at 80%. So that's why we've been hesitant to get too far along, but we're making really good progress.
Can you talk a little bit about Capper and how he responded to coming back from a pretty serious injury, as well as a lot of competition from some pretty good young players at his position?
Well, here's a couple of things. His room, that defensive line room, there's a lot of really interesting characters in that room. And he is the leader in that room. And so his ability to relate with all of the players who are in that room really, to me, singularly, is the one trait that he's shown that has elevated him to this position of captain, because he's been able to manage all those young personalities, veterans, he himself being a veteran, he's seen it, and I was really proud of the way he handles that room. He's the leader in that room on the defensive side of the ball. So, and that I've seen that since January. This isn't something that happened over the last 2 weeks. This is something that continued to evolve, and he really has taken hold of that room. And obviously, you got a great D-line coach in there too, with Coach Elston focused strictly on the D-line, but we have a really good dynamic in there.
One final follow-up for me on the Sierra and Justin situation. You know, fans tend to keep a scorecard of who got suspended what and what their punishments were. When you're coming up with your decision on how to proceed with this group, how difficult is that when you have to weigh in all those other factors, or do you not use those?
Oh no, I have to weigh all the factors that are involved. Each one, to me, is there's different circumstances in each one. I mean, the ultimate goal is we want them all to turn out like Michael Floyd's situation, where they make life decisions to change the way they are. And so the ultimate goal is to get, as I said earlier, with any kind of sanctions or any kind of suspensions, we want better citizens. We want more accountable citizens. We want people representing our program in the right way. And so there isn't a matrix, and I just kind of go down and go, okay, that equals 2, and I'm not trying to be a wise guy about it, but it just takes a lot of time to kind of put all the things together to make those decisions.
Brian, could you talk about the offensive line? It hasn't been getting a lot of attention because it's a pretty secure area, and you've got some depth, you've got some versatility there. Could you give an overall going into the season?
Well, anytime you have 4 starters back on the offensive line, and of course I consider Mike Golick to be a starter, although it was at center, he's starting at the right guard position. You can't underestimate those live snaps and having those live snaps under your belt when you open up. So now you're looking at, Christian Lombard, who's been here, now on his 3rd season. He's experienced in the sense that he knows what to expect on a game day, and he's made great improvement at that right tackle position. So anytime you've got a left side like Watt and Martin and Braxton Cave, arguably one of the better centers in the country, add Mike Golick to that pretty strong offensive line, you feel pretty good going into any game.
When the announcement came out about Everett Golson, sometimes if you got a quarterback that's deliberate, I'll use that term because I was overly deliberate in my day, but when you got a quarterback that can be a little bit more deliberate, sometimes you got to hold your block a little bit more. You got to be a little bit more on target with a quicker quarterback back there, a guy that can maybe, misstep somebody and create some opportunities. I mean, those guys got to be pretty juiced to having a guy back there that's that quick.
I've never asked them personally, but I would say if I was the offensive lineman and that a guy can make something happen, that probably keeps your attention a little bit longer because, he's got great escapability. But he's one that is committed to the pocket, and that's really one of the reasons why we went with him is that, he wasn't a guy that was going to run out of the pocket at, the first, off-color jersey coming at him. So in answering your question, I think our offensive line knows his strengths. He's going to stay in the pocket, but he's got great escapability. So if they just stay on their blocks, good things can happen.
Coach, over here to your right. You have one of the top targets in the country for Everett with Tyler Eifert, and he was kind of a beneficiary of having Michael Floyd also on his side last year. Is there anyone gaining separation in the receiving corps who can maybe take some of the burden off Tyler this year?
You're going to need your media guide as it relates to the wide receiver position because they're all playing. Each one of them right now has a different skill set. Nobody is polished to the level where they're a standalone player at the receiving corps other than Tyler Eifert. He's a standalone player. He can block in line, he can block in the perimeter, he can catch the ball deep, he can go over the middle, he can do all the things. All the other young men are evolving into specific roles, and they will have important roles within our offense. So they're all going to play. You're all going to have to get familiar with all of their names because they're all going to be involved in our game plan. So you also have veterans that are going to get an opportunity. You know, John Goodman. You know, we know about Robbie Toma. You know, Danny Smith, who's been with our program, he's going to get an opportunity to play. Tavares Daniels, Chris Brown, Justin Ferguson, Devontae Neal. I mean, and I probably left out a couple of others. They're all going to have to play collectively roles in our offense.
Is it, if you're going to have like
So that answers the question, I think.
You're going to have almost like a 6-7-man rotation there at receiver, continuity within the offense.
Well, they'll know what their role is. In other words, it's defined, you know, by what they're asked to do. You know, we're not going to ask Chris Brown to come in and take over the game. You know what I mean? He's going to have a role, and all of those guys are understanding as we, you know, get further into our, you know, our game planning. Okay, I see what my role is going to be against Navy, and they're going to embrace their role, and they're going to understand. So we won't have an issue of misunderstanding what their role is. Continuity is a different question. We're just going to be rolling a lot of guys in there.
Do you have Cam McDaniel working exclusively on offense, or is he still cross-training at
He's
corner?
exclusively right now, as we speak, on offense. But, you know, things change, you know.
And do you foresee having needing a certain type of rotation also at the cornerback position, almost like at receiver?
No, I don't think we need to see a rotation as much as continue to develop, you know, some of our young talented players. We think we've got some really, you know, including Kaveri Russell, who's going to be a starter. You know, we're really high on Josh and Jalen and Elijah Shoemate. I mean, those guys we're really excited about. They're young players. So we'll continue to develop them, but we don't need to have a rotation in there. We think we've got a lot of players on offense that can contribute in roles, whereas the cornerback position is not necessarily a role-playing position.
And has anyone like emerged as a nickel or a dime figure?
That's still work in progress because there's really very little nickel work this week. So that's still going to evolve next week.
Right to your left. As it relates to Amir Carlisle, I know your Z receivers get a few periods playing running back.
Sure.
Is he still running back first, or is he getting a look at Z?
No, he has to play both. So, you know, if we assume, just for the sake of the argument, that the B back, the one back, he can line up in that slot position. So he's got to be able to do both. He can't be just, I'm lining up at running back and that's all that I do. So all of those guys, including George, who probably arguably had the furthest ground to cover, and he's made great progress, they all have to be able to be cross-trained, and Amir is going to be able to do that quite well once he's 100%.
And I know you originally planned to have morning practices last week as well as this week. Probably you had 5 or 6 of them scheduled.
Yeah, I think we were going to start last week and then continue.
Was it a matter of, did you look at it and it was going to be diminishing returns by?
I think you're right, Tim. I think as I thought about more and got a feel for our team in terms of where they are, preparation-wise, physically, you know, college students have a tendency to cut back on sleep more than anything else, and I didn't want to be the person that adds to that and let it possibly affect us later in the year. So I changed gears on that, and that was just a feel of our team. You know, if I felt like we needed to do it, we were a team that didn't have a lot of, you know, upperclassmen that understand getting up and getting their work done. I may have gone in a different route, but it was a feel for me more than anything else.
And how concerned are you that you're playing probably the team in the country that is best equipped to play a game early in the morning since they hit the ground running every day?
Yeah, I don't think that they're going to have a problem. They won't be late for the game. I know that. It's certainly, and I think I said this earlier, I might have been more concerned if it was week 4 or 5 when you get into a pattern or a routine. It's the opener. My gosh, if you can't be excited about the opener, I don't know what we're doing here playing football. So I really don't think I think it's going to be a non-issue.
Thank you.
Brian, just following up on the Wood suspension, you said that decision was strictly yours and one that you made. Just wondered, 2 years ago before your first game at Notre Dame, or even last year, would you have been more or less comfortable making that decision, or be no difference?
I don't know that I would have been reticent to make the decision. I probably would have checked to make sure that I could make the decision. I learned in my first year that there were some decisions that I can't make. So I think if, in all honesty, I probably would have checked around and make sure that I could make the decision. I was pretty clear after being in my third year this was a decision that I could make.
With a kid like Kavari, does it almost help that you're playing an offense that isn't passing oriented, so he maybe can work out those first game jitters?
Yeah, I mean, that's one way to look at it, but if you're not disciplined, the ball goes over your head like that. So it's kind of like, all right, what kind of kid do you have here? Do you have just this super athlete that could cover anybody man to man? Or do you have this kid that has great discipline and he's going to read his keys? So it just depends on, how you want to look at that. We think he's got the ability to do the job against Navy, a different job than it will be against Purdue. But we think he's got that ability to do the job. So, I don't want to say pick your poison, but they are so different in terms of the roles that he's going to ask to be performing. We would not put him in this position if we didn't think he could perform this role.
Ryan, right over here. Quick follow-up on Everett.
Yeah.
You mentioned all off-season, primary goal of the quarterbacks is not make the mistakes that plagued you guys last year. A lot of people would think first-time starter is the most prone to making those kind of mistakes.
He will make mistakes. Let's make it clear. He will make mistakes. I think if we really look carefully at the mistakes that we made, they were turnovers in the red zone. They were turnovers in the end zone. They were heightened within the game. He's going to make some mistakes, and we know that, and we're going to have to obviously try to overcome those. But it's those poor decisions that we have to eradicate. And I don't know if you finished your question. I jumped in. I'm sorry.
Just the sort of idea of a guy who's taking his first college snap, how predictable or how unpredictable is he going to be naturally at that position?
Well, I think, Coach Martin, our entire offensive staff feels as though he's disciplined in his approach, that he understands the routine of the quarterback position, that he's going to minimize the mistakes. Because he's shown that over the past month. If he's not out of character on Saturday, I will safely say he will do a very good job of taking care of the football. But that's why they play the games.